Hi everyone, welcome to my super easy beginners series. I am going to do a sunset with some sea and some wet sand reflections. So I've got a small bit of Bockingford here, 5 by 7 inches. I've got a Cotman palette which I'll link in the description, and a round number 10, a round number 6 and a number 2 rigger. So this is what I use for the whole of this series, and I make do with what I've got, because often when you're a beginner you only have a certain amount of supplies and you have to work with them. So I'm going to have a nice big sky. Round number 10, taking on the water. I want this nice and even, no dull bits, because that means it's dry. You can get down to eye level to see that, and no puddles. Especially if you're on Bockingford. It's not so bad if you're on a cotton paper, you can get away with a odd puddle, but you want it to be nice and even on a Bockingford or wood pulp paper. Okay, so we'll start with my lightest colour first. So I'm going to come in with some cadmium yellow and just bring that through. I'm going to dip straight into some cadmium red and straight into a little bit of rose. I tend to prefer the rose to the cadmium red because it gives a pinkier tone, and I like a pinkier tone. It also works well if you're going to pop any blue in, because you can bring the pink towards the end of the yellow and it works to stop it going green, which is what I'm doing now. Rinse my brush out, make sure it's nice and clean. Got a little bit of water on it. I'm going to come into some cerulean blue. So you could have cobalt blue if you had that. If you're coming up to the edge of the yellow, you just don't mix it together. Just let it settle. I want these little bits of blue in. I'm going to take some blue. I'm going to use this here because it's a very similar colour to what I'm trying to achieve. And a little bit of the rose, and we want a purple. Purple's always great for a cloudy colour in the sky. So I'm coming in. Tends to mix with everything and work. So nice wispy clouds in here. So if it mixes with the yellow, it makes it a little bit more brown, that's fine. You just don't want green in a sunset sky. Bring this bit up here. And a little bit more. Help if I choose the right rose. Now, often with a wood pulp paper, you will get bits that dry. That's absolutely fine. I've got a little bit that's drying here. I'm just going to make a little bit more of a feature of it. When you've got hard and soft edges working together, it tends to work. If you've got all hard edges or all soft edges, it can sometimes not work. So you wouldn't have a whole hard edge sky. I'm just taking a little bit more of this purple in where it's faded too much now. Because what I want is for that to be a bit bolder. So I'm just coming in with a smaller brush, and as it's dried a little bit, it's going to stay a little bit bolder. That's a really nice effective sky there. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so I've dried that one off, mainly to stop it moving. I don't want it to move anymore. I'm going to come in now and I'm going to create the reflection on the sand. So just thinking where I want the water to come. We'll have the waves coming in either side, I think. So I've wet like a little arch here. I'm going to take some of the same colours in. I'm going to start with that yellow. You're only going to really reflect that bottom part of the sky. You've got a small amount of sky here. Just think about where those colours went before. Take a bit of that cadmium red in. It's remembering the colours you've used and repeating them. It doesn't have to be exact, but near enough. And then the rose. Then we come down to my number 6. And then it's the rose and the cerulean blue together. And I want you to start to reflect some of the cloud. If you think about this section and what you reflect in there, that's the main bit. You might get a few wispy bits behind, but that's the main bit you want to reflect. What's quite nice as well is if you come along the water's edge with a bit of that purple, you'll get a really nice shadowed effect happening there. It should start to hold together as a reflection on the wet sand. It's always hard to get a little bit of blue in, but if you go in nice and strong and you want a little bit of blue, you should be able to get that in. You want an odd little bit there. If I dry my brush off totally, then what I'm going to do is just spread what I have across. So this denotes the surface on the paper. I can do a little bit now, and I'll show you how to lift out later, and it's just going to make it look more reflective. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, so I'm going to come in now and start to create the water. I'm going to use my round number 6. I'm going to use the cerulean blue, but I also want a grey, so I'm going to use some ultramarine and burnt umber. Now if you don't have these, you could just use, I've got ivory black there. I could just use ivory black. You could use Payne's grey. So no need to worry, just any sort of dark will do for this. So I'm gonna load my brush up with water, then load it up with cerulean blue. I'm going to try and get a nice edge. Often with YouTube you get an odd critique, and I get told quite often that my horizons are not straight. I've never really been that bothered about it. I quite like a non-straight horizon, but you can use things like tape if you want to, if you want a perfect horizon. I quite like the looser look. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating a bobbly edge to create a wave that's coming in. Not a tidal wave, just a nice gentle lapping wave. And then I'm gonna come along the bottom. I'm making sure that this blue paint is quite wet so that it's got no opportunity to dry and create a hard edge at this point. Because I want bits of white and I want bits of paint. So I'm just making sure that that doesn't dry too quickly. You see how I'm spreading that out? Creating a really nice wave effect. You could take all of this in. It's just giving you bits of lights and bits of darks really. I'm going to come into that grey now. I'm going to bring some of that in. With a sunset, the darker you can get that horizon line, the more the sky will look really dramatic. So it's a really good tip. That's why I've gone really dark with the grey, but I don't want you to eliminate all of the blue. So I'm going to spread it around a little bit, but leave little bits of the blue showing. And just come under a few of these little bits. Some of these are wet, some of it's now dry. It works with this loose style. You can just get away with just playing and bringing a few bits through. And it's really nice and effective. So just odd bits of the grey appearing. We've got a really nice wave. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I've loaded with water and I'm dabbing back into that purple, but I don't want this, I've loaded with water because I don't want it to be too strong. So you can see it's nice and dilute now, and I can just bring that through and just randomly dab in places, leaving gaps, and you get a really nice shadow on that wave. You can see this is now looking quite reflective. So if I take a little bit of this tissue or kitchen towel, and then what I'm going to do now, so you've got two ways you can lift out to get more of the lines here in the light, or you can put paint on. So I'm going to just try lifting out. It's not always successful, but let's hope it is. Just lifting out a little bit of light. So this is just a wet brush. Yep, it's lifting out. So you just want some little bits of light in here, and you can do a few lines. Always make sure you've got clean tissue. Lift out a little bit more here. So they've got a line of light reflected from the light in the sky. And then I'm going to attempt to lift out a sun. So if you watched any of my sunset videos, you'll see that I often lift it out when it's wet, but this had already dried, so this is giving you another option. So I'm just circling the brush round, nice clean bit of tissue, lifting it out. I've just got this very faint light from the sunset. Lift a little bit out there as well. That's it. Okay, so I'll dry that one off. So there we go, it's all finished. A really super simple, effective sunset and reflective sand. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop another video here in a playlist for my beginners series here. If you're interested in a membership option, there's details in the description as well, which goes through more comprehensive tutorials like I would do in my classes.